before real estate ever existed, there was this thing called qualifying a lead, which means that we determine if this lead is real or not. Today, we're talking about qualifying. Now, in real estate, this gets confusing because sometimes we say qualifying a lead and they're like, oh yeah, I sent them to the lender. No. We determine if this person has capacity, right? What we would call ready, willing, and able. Okay, readiness, willingness, and ability are very important when it comes to lead generation. And what I see so often, and we can all relate to this, I've done it. How many of you have ever worked for a lead, and then you found out later they could never have bought or sold a house? Right? Whoops. And is that a waste of time? Absolutely, it's a waste of time. Of course, that's a waste of time. Wouldn't it be nice to get rid of those people much sooner in the sales process so that our closing averages go up? We can spend more time with the right people. And in doing so, what happens to our income, baby? Woo! All right, we're going on that vacation this year. That's what happens. All right. So we have to focus on the right things, be asking the right questions, and go through the right process. And what I have realized is that most agents don't realize there's already a process for this. It's been around in real estate on both sides, buyer and seller side, for a long time. There's actually even one for commercial, but we're not going to cover that today. So in residential real estate, we're going to be talking about how do you qualify a buyer lead and how do you qualify a seller lead? And what are the standards for that? Can you deviate and come up with your own version? Heck yes. But should you avoid this completely? No. If this is not in your process, this will increase your income and your outcomes a lot. Okay. It's going to help you to hit your goals a lot sooner. In fact, I believe that most agents spend most of their time working with underqualified leads, meaning that they're spending a lot of time just spinning their wheels. It's the Fred Flintstone. Nothing happening, right? The car is sitting still. And so that's not a good deal. That is not what we want. So today we're going to cover how to impact that. All right. So again, if you're just logging on, just so you know, one more time, next week, same time, same place, right here, this channel, we are going to be covering the settlement, and we're bringing in all of our top leaders so you guys can understand why we are so excited about what comes next, right? You're already with EXP, baby. You already made the right choice. Self 5, you'll understand why in a week. So hang in there. All right. Don't get freaked out. Don't watch the news. Just trust me. If you watch the news, you think bacon's going to kill you too. So I'm still eating that. Things have gone pretty well so far. All right. Here we go. We're going to jump right in, and I'm going to make sure, let me see. I got to make sure my screen share is working here, guys. And if you guys are with us on the live on Facebook, welcome, welcome. I know that I can't see you in the chat, but we'll respond to your stuff later. This will also be posted later for all of our members inside the communitycenter.com in your private access membership. So you're the lucky ones. So today we're talking about how to qualify leads. And again, this is not lead pre-qualification like we talk about with a lender, although that's really the same origin, is this idea that a lender wouldn't give a loan to somebody that had no capacity to be able to borrow and then repay. Agents also shouldn't be working with clients who don't have any capacity or interest in buying or selling, but we do it a lot, right? In fact, I believe it's part of what creates safety concerns in real estate, right? Especially for those of you out there who, I don't know what the right verbiage is, guys, so don't, cancel me or whatever we're doing these days. But if you identify as female, we've seen that it be a vulnerability in the past, right? As people can come in, there's some people who kind of prey on this. How could we avoid that? Well, part of it is we could qualify leads and we would know earlier on that this person's not real. All right. So maybe this would be even impact safety, which would be great. So what is qualifying? Qualifying equals, what does that say? Questions. Qualifying equals questions. And too often when we're selling ourselves, we're not sorting. And I have to cover this today. I think it's later in the slide deck, but there's a humongous difference between sorting and selling. How many people saw Harry Potter and loved it, or read the books and loved them? Either way. Joe, I felt you. Joe was like, I'm just sailing. How do you say it, bro?
Joe sailing. You had it right. Like you're going to buy something that's on sale.
All right, my man. So Joe's like, I read the books. I felt the vibe. He's like, I don't know about the movies, but do you remember the sorting hat? Right? It's this awesome hat, and it could sort, right? Like you're naughty, you're nice, or no, it was like you're going to this house, you're going to that house, right? And what's interesting though is the hat sorted. This is at the beginning of a funnel. We shouldn't be selling. If you're selling right away when you pick up the phone, you're doing it wrong. Your job is to be the sorting hat. And that's what we call qualifying, okay? Qualifying is being the sorting hat at the beginning of your sales process. And if you can sort like a master, then you'll save all of your energy for selling to the right people. And by the way, the right people want what you're selling. Holy moly, wait, what a minute. Wait a minute. Huh? That doesn't make it. Yes, they want what you have. If you find that you're having to ram stuff down people's throats, it's because you're selling too early. By the way, even those of you who are cold calling expires and for sale by owners and those types of people, guess what? You can still sort on those calls and not sell so hard. If you're trying to take a listing over the phone, you're doing it wrong. Okay. So just so you know, all of this is possible at the front edge of your funnel. When you say funnel, Jeff, what are you talking about? I'm talking about anybody that enters your ecosystem. Some of you are doing web funnels. That's incredible. Some of you are like, I'm rocking it on LinkedIn. That's awesome. Some of you are cranking on YouTube. Love it, right? Some of you are old school, as old school can get, man. Door knocking, open houses, working your sphere on the phone. You've made a phone call like in the last 12 months, right? Like, guess what? That's awesome too. That's me, baby. I love old school. I love it. But does it matter? No, a funnel's a funnel. It just means once somebody is now in your space, we're going to talk about how to make that work. All right, let's go back to the slides. So qualifying means questions. The very first thing that we need to understand when somebody enters our ecosystem is we have to set the stage, ideally, by asking one question. Now, I'm going to skip over the pleasantries. I'm guessing you guys know how to say, hi, how you doing? Good morning, afternoon, blah, blah, blah. Build a little bit of rapport, blah, blah, blah. You can do all that stuff. I'm not going to teach that today. All right. That's baby boom, boom 101. Go back a few sessions. We probably covered it. All right. But once you get to a logical point of departure, and I would recommend that your rapport building not last longer than a couple minutes. Most people don't like being on the phone their whole life. So go quick. That's okay. It's polite and respectful. But then you can say something along the lines of, and by the way, make this your own. There are no magic scripts, but be scripted. I actually believe in being scripted, meaning you're scripted whether you know it or not. You're probably saying the same things all the time. They're just either terrible or really effective. Being scripted means being thoughtful about what you're saying all the time. So before we dive into discussing your real estate needs, I have a few questions that'll help us to ensure that you get the help that you need. Something like that. You could even close right there and say, sound good, or fair enough, or does that work for you? Or do you have that time, or whatever? But you need to ask for permission as opposed to just leaping into questions. And the reason is that if you start leaping into questions, it feels like an interrogation. But if you've said, hey, I have a few questions that would really help me a lot to understand what your needs are. Would you mind if we rolled through those really quickly? There's another example. Then people will say, oh, sure, yeah, no problem. Or they'll say no. And if they say no, they've already qualified out. You can follow up with them again. Here's the thing. I'm going to take my face back on screen. If they say no, assume that they just don't have time right now. Just assume that they don't have time right now, right? If I'm talking with Joe Sailing, I got it right, right? If I'm talking with Joe, my Portland dude, and I'm talking with him and you know what? And maybe he's a buyer though. And I say, hey, do you have time to answer these questions? He's like, listen, I really don't have time for that. I'll say, absolutely, Joe. How about this? I will text you and we'll find a better time for you.
Hey, that works great. When's a good time?
Bada bing, right? Now we're in business, okay? Because what it was, I was polite and respectful of his time instead of me being like, well, listen, Joe, it's really important. We need to do this right now. I don't know. He might have his daughter in the back seat. He's dropping her off at daycare. I don't know, right? Like, I don't know Joe's details and I wouldn't know the details of an internet lead either, right? And so, but what I can assume is that he's got great intent, definitely wants to meet with me, but right now is not the right time. If I try and crank it, I'm going to lose him. Stupid. But I'm also going to spend all my time asking questions for somebody that I'm just pissing off, and now they don't want to work with me. Bad choice. All right, so that's step number one, is set the stage and ask for permission. By saying these questions will help me to better serve you, I'm making it about them, not about me. Instead of, I have to ask these questions in order for me to work with you, right? Now I've made it about me, not about them. Think about this, by the way. If I say to Jordan, hey, Jordan, if I ask these questions, I'm going to be able to give you the help that you need to ensure that you are able to get the best house for the best price possible, right? If he's a buyer, he's going to be like, yeah, sounds great. If he wants to buy a house, that does sound great. If he doesn't want to buy a house, that sounds like a waste of time. That's what's beautiful about this. Okay. Already you will lose a couple people right there. Don't worry about it. They weren't real. I promise you they weren't real. Especially if you're dealing with web leads. They weren't real. All right. Don't worry about it. Just put them in your nurture and drip on them until they buy or die. Who cares? But you don't have to talk to them right now. That's the point. All right. Let's go back. So we set the stage, we got permission. Then we need to figure out if this person is a buyer or a seller or a both, meaning a buy sell, or a neither. That's the big one that we actually want to find out, meaning they ain't gonna do nothing, right? So we're trying to figure that out. So what I like, and by the way, I'm approaching this as though this is a web lead, right? You could go a lot of different directions, and you may need to tailor some of these scripts differently based on where these leads are coming from. If they're coming out of a high intent marketplace like Google AdWords, and they clicked on a thing that says, I need to talk to an agent about buying a house right this second, that's a different person than somebody who clicked on a Facebook ad and subscribed on my website. But nonetheless, if I'm talking with Jordan, hey, Jordan, so I appreciate that. He's just given me permission. And now I say, so you're looking to buy a home this year? So you're looking to buy a home this year? That's how I would ask that. Now, what you'll notice is that's an interrogative. It is a statement with a question mark at the end of it. That is not actually structured as a question mark or a question. A question would be, are you looking to buy a home this year? That's not what it says. What it says is, so you're looking to buy a home this year? It's called an interrogative for a reason, and we're looking for either confirmation or disagreement, right? By the way, there's another form of disagreement called stuttering. This is what people do when they lie. Well, yeah, I mean, that's, no, you're not. When people are looking to buy a house, what do they say? Yes, it's not a hard question. It's a very easy question to answer. So look for the easy answer. Again, we are sorting, not selling. I'm not trying to convince them to buy a house. I'm trying to find out if they want to buy a house so I can go fast to the end zone and get paid. Let's just be honest. So I'm trying to save you guys from a lot of time wasted in this industry. Next thing, I can say, okay, great. Now, why would I ask this question? And do you also have a home to sell as well before you purchase the next one? And then they'll answer that, and I'll say, and do you need to have those proceeds in place before making that purchase? Is that valuable information to have? Yeah, it is. Partly because I can find out if they're cash loaded, which is rad, but partly because I can also understand, do I need to have some contingencies? Is it going to be playing dominoes with these guys? Also, why do I want to know all of this? Because I just found out if they said yes to both of those, they're a buy and a sell. How many transactions is that? Last I checked, 2. We're off to a good start. Now, here's something interesting, and I want you guys to see this because so often we're talking to buyer leads and we forget to ask these questions, that second question. Why do I want to find that out? Because NAR, beautiful NAR. All right. NAR helped us by doing a capacity study, and they told us that move up, move down. What does that mean? It means people who currently have a house who are going to sell that house and buy a new house. Represents 50% of all real estate transactions. Again, 50% of all buyers are sellers, 50% of all sellers are buyers. 50%, half. Why am I saying it so many times? Because I've heard people in real time answer a buyer call and not ask them if they also have a house to sell. And then find out 3 months later that their home sale is going really great with the agent down the street. Oops, you could have had that listing. You just forgot to ask. I'm just telling you, that one qualifying question is massively powerful. We're about to go into the full process here. Then we go into either a buy side or a sell side or a merged qualifying process. And this is what I'm going to teach you today. This is awesome. And if you haven't dealt with this before, even if you have, I'm going to show you some secrets that you probably don't have. But on the buy side, we're going to use LP Mama. If you haven't been introduced to that. And on the sell side, we're going to use seller. It's an acronym, SELLER, LPMAMA on the buy side. And we're going to talk about that. So again, what have we done? We sought permission. This is qualifying. We sought permission. Then we sorted B, S, or BS. Buyer, seller, or buyer and seller, right? And then we drop into one of the two categories or both. So why are we doing this? Because if we can take them through this whole process, by the way, you don't even have to do this. I'm going to let you know, some of you guys who are running big teams, all of this could be hired or a hired done, licensed admin, buyer agent, seller agent. I don't care. This could be done by somebody else who isn't you. It's just asking questions. This could be an intake form, like when you go to the doctor's office. Have you ever had a surgery? I'm like, oh gosh, I don't, ugh. And I have to think back. It's awful. It's really grueling. I hate it. Every time I'm like, I think I did. I don't, when was that? I don't know, wisdom teeth and tonsils and, it's awful. But do you do it? Yeah, because what do you have to do? You have to go through that to go talk to the doctor so that they can prescribe you some stuff you don't need, right? So guess what? That's the process. You have to go through it. People are just used to going through process, jumping through hoop. It's not a big deal. People will answer your question. You think they won't, they will. If they're serious, they definitely will. That's what's interesting. So let's go back to it. We're going to dig into what these processes are. But on the buy side, it's LP Mama. And on the seller side, it's SELLER. These are established frameworks that will help you to stay on the straight and narrow with your clients so that you're not off talking about the price of tea in China, and so that you're not talking about what color they want the kitchen cabinets to be before you find out that they have an 11 credit score. Okay? Because it's fun to dream, but you're not the lottery office. So let's just go ahead and treat this like professionals. It's going to be awesome. All right. So qualifying buyers. What are the things that stall out buyers along the process? And sometimes inversion is a really important thing to know. In other words, what's not a buyer, right? Well, if somebody has no intent or no interest at all, or a low credit score or no credit history or no savings for a down payment, no closing cost ability, no income at all, or low income, insufficient, right, is what we wrote here, or non-conforming income even, right? Sometimes that can happen. Well, I've got a hot dog stand and I make $3 million a year in cash. Oh, okay. Well, where do you keep that cash? In a briefcase. Fantastic. Well, call Joanne. Just kidding. It's going to be hard to deal with that transaction, right? You're going to have to like buy a concrete company and fake pump a bunch of money into it. It's called money laundering. You'll do it. All right. Joanne will help you. I'm joking. Okay. Bankruptcy, right? That's not a great one. Or foreclosure. Now, do these 100% eliminate everybody? No. We can work with some of these things. But if you find yourself being the repair person in the industry where you're just trying to put broken people together so that they can barely scrape by and buy houses, you're not going to do much business. I'm going to say that again because it sounds heartless and I don't mean it to be heartless. I'm just going to tell you, if all you're doing is working the absolute hardest transactions you can possibly find, meaning I have to fix this human being before, right? Like has anyone ever dated somebody where you're like, I can fix them. I'll make them better. I know they're broken. He's a jerk, but I'm going to make him nice, right? How's that work out? Well, after the divorce, it works out great. So the problem is that's a losing strategy in real estate as well. You got to be on top of this with your clients to find out that they actually have real capacity to be able to buy, sell, etc. And that's what we're talking about today. It's really important. Okay, let's go to the next step. So these things can stall out buyers. If you don't know these, take a picture of this slide or it'll be in the recording. But these are definitely some red flags. You want to be looking for this stuff. Now, is every question geared to this? No, but some people, when they're just telling you about their situation, some people just overshare. It's unfathomable how much they will share with you, right? Well, I've got $900 trillion in back taxes and I owe my family member $7 billion. And then my credit score is an 11. And okay, this is awesome. Thanks so much for letting me know. What is the LP Mama framework on buyers? We're going to talk about what these questions are. In fact, we give you sample scripts for each of these. Location, price, motivation, authority, mortgage, and agency. And hey, guess what? That agency one's going to become a lot more relevant coming up here. So we're going to show you how to do that as well. And if you haven't seen this session where John Sellers did that, walked somebody all the way through getting a buyer agency agreement several weeks ago, because we could see this one coming, it's right there for you. All right. In fact, I'll link out to it after this video. So on location, the idea here is we're trying to gather information so that we can what? Disqualify leads. What do you mean, Jeff? We want to get rid of leads? Yes, we want to get rid of leads. Here's how I know. Let's say that you get really good at creating leads and you go create 300 leads, but you're so optimistic in your mind that you believe all 300 of them could buy if only I can save them all. Raise your hand if you can currently work with 300 people at a time and really keep it all together. Yeah, I'm seeing all my top producers like shake their head and be like, not a chance, right? No, you're never going to do that. So what you need to do is you need to get rid of the 98 to 99% of those who are phonies and you need to work with the people who are real. And what we're trying to do is to rapidly accelerate that process. So you could have 10 of these conversations a day while still generating leads and get down to the good stuff. You might not even find somebody every day. That's okay. You've just prevented future you from a lot of pain and stress and agony. Let's keep going. So we're going to ask a question or 2 questions or 3 questions pertaining to each of these on the buyer side. And then we'll cover the seller side process with you. And we're going to talk about what are nurture leads, meaning long-term intent, right? So location. And by the way, feel free to shuffle these up. Some people I know do this in a different order. That's fine. This is kind of industry standard stuff, and I'm going to share that today. But if you've got a different process where you're like, what I like to know first off is this, because then I can this other thing, that's great. If you have a process, that means you've thought through it. What we're trying to handle today is to make sure you're thinking through it. All right. So location, which neighborhoods or areas are you primarily interested in for your next home? Why would we want to know that? Well, first off, if they can't answer the question, have they really given this much thought? No. Might they have low intent? Maybe. Now, if I'm buying out of area, I might, because I'm an investor, maybe I would say, not sure. I'd need your guidance or advice on where the best returns are, or where's the best rental area, or what's the most up and coming, where's the gentrification happening, et cetera, right? Where can I get the best rent roll or cash on cash return or whatever? I don't care, right? That might be for me, but a standard buyer who lives in town, they're going to know where they want to be. Have you identified your favorite areas of town where you might like to live? What am I not doing? Making statements. What am I doing? Asking questions. Why? Because I want them to talk. If they're talking and you're asking, who's leading? You are. If they start asking questions and you start answering and now you're doing all the talking, they're leading, you're following, you're about to be out of business. Don't do it. Trust me. Keep the questions in your side of the court. All right. So that's location. We're trying to find out. Guess what you should do? Inside your CRM. LP Mama, under location, boom. You write their answer. Easy. You could even have this as just a framework. You cut, paste, and then you answer your questions right there in your CRM and hit save when you're done with each person. You'll have comprehensive information about what they're looking for. You could even have a tagging system if you want to get advanced. Next, price. What's your ideal budget or price range? Now, they may not know, and that's okay. You're looking for the seriousness or the intent of their answer. I don't know yet. We haven't met with a lender is a different kind of answer than, I don't know. We're really maybe up to $1 million or 5 million or, 50,000. We're not really sure. Well, that's way too wide. So it sends up a little bit of a red flag, and I'm going to be looking for a little bit more information now, right? Or at least I'm going to want to see if they're willing to connect with my lending partner as quickly as possible. Have you already run the numbers to see what your budget might look like with a lender, for instance? Is there a price you'd like to try to stay under as we get started? I'm already priming, by the way, NLP. I'm priming that we are going to work together. That's an assumptive close. Have we signed anything yet? No. By the way, just depending on your state or your local rules and regulations, I'm assuming earlier in the process, you've already asked them if they're working with another agent. I have that under agency. Some places you have to ask it up front. By the way, when you ask that, do not ask, are you working with? That is such a low intent question. Ask, are you under contract with? Especially now, by the way, they have to be. So ask, have you signed a contract with another agent? Is a much more direct question. Working with sounds like I know an agent. Signed a contract sounds like signed a contract. That's the difference, right? You're going to get a way different answer, and it gives you a better competitive stance. Next, motivation. Now, check this one out, guys. This is interesting. Why do we need to understand motivation? Because this is what we're going to use along the process to remind them of why they want to keep moving forward. Because let me ask you this, and I'll kill my screen share for a second. Does it ever happen where clients get frustrated in a real estate process? I see people nodding. Yes, absolutely. Yes, of course. Are they going to get frustrated? You can assume. Yes, thank you, Joanne. Awesome. Yes, of course. You can assume that they will get frustrated. Why? Because real estate is stressful and it's unknown. And whenever someone's dealing with stress and unknown and spending money, they get frustrated. That's just how it works. There's frustration and stress in that process. In general, your job is to relieve those stressors. But why do we want their motivation? Because motivation is what keeps people coming back to the fire, coming back to the flame to keep moving forward, right? I know that you wanted to be able to move to Minneapolis so you can be closer to your son and daughter. And that's what we're trying to accomplish together here. So let's work together. We can get this done. When I do that in a moment of stress, it resets people's emotions. So I need to know that information now. It's part of the qualifying process. Also, if their answer is, no, we're just kind of thinking about it, that's low motivation. Does that mean that they're out? Not necessarily, but does it mean that they're in like Flynn? Definitely not. So what we might want to do is have a scoring system. I know some big teams, by the way, have a 1 to 10 system on each of these, and they actually run it through a form. And by using something like, what's the big one? They've got a free platform, Cognito Forms. You could use those guys, right? Something like that. So you could use a form builder to just run this. You could do it just for yourself. So you just run through the form, you answer each one, but now you get a submission on the back end. You could just have it go to you, but now you have all this qualifying information for each person and you have it saved in a database. Incredible. Okay, next, let's go back in. Thanks, guys, for hanging with me. All right, so what's motivating your move at this time? Oh, wow. Now listen to this follow-up question. And what about that is most important to you? So let's just say, for instance, they say, we want to be closer to our son and daughter in Minneapolis, like I said. And what about that is most important to you? Well, they're having a grandbaby and it's really important to us to be there. Family's number one for us. They're going to give me more emotional reasons on that second half of the question. The first half of the question, they're just going to give me the surface. So it's called a dig deeper, or I don't know, there are other words for it. But really what we're trying to uncover is an emotional why behind the logical why. Okay? We're going to activate both sides of the brain, left and right. Are there any specific reasons you're moving or goals you're trying to achieve? Right. So if I get a kind of a fuzzy answer on the first one, I might dig a little deeper with that, looking for specifics. If they're too vague, oh, I don't know, we just kind of like real estate moving things. It's like that's too vague. So are there any specific reasons that you're moving or goals you're trying to achieve? And then they may say, well, yeah, we're thinking about becoming investors, but we don't know what we're doing. So now I find out, okay, they have real motivation. They're just shy, or they're a little nervous, or they feel vulnerable because they've not done this before. Okay. But I'm trying to uncover their actual motivation. By the way, if there is no motivation that ever comes out, you're going to have a hard time with this client, or non-client, by the way, probably prospect forever. All right. Next. So we've gotten through LP. Here's All right. LP Ma. Authority. What does authority mean, Jeff? In your home buying process, will you be the only decision maker, or will anyone else be deciding with you? There's other ways to ask that, but what I want to know is, are you the only person making this decision? That doesn't mean you're the only person on the loan. We all know people who've been the only person on the loan and on deed and title to the house, and yet somebody else is making all their decisions for them, be it mom, dad, boyfriend, girlfriend, right? I don't care, whomever, tax planner, it doesn't matter. I just need to know who's this other person, because sometimes there's a shadow standing behind them and I don't know who this person is that's actually pulling all the strings. I want to know. Now, am I asking it like an interrogation? No, I'm just being polite. You can, by the way, this is really important. I'm going to take myself off screen share here so I can say smile when you ask all of these questions. If you're on the phone, they'll hear the smile. If you're on Zoom, they'll see the smile. If you're in person, they'll see the smile. But I promise you smiling is important, because otherwise it goes really quickly to feeling like a what? Interrogation, and that is not positive for them. Okay, so smile. When you ask this stuff, and it will, by the way, if you have trouble smiling, smile and lift your eyebrows at the same time. It'll just change the way that you read. So here's the difference, right? If I don't smile, I'll try not to smile. In your home buying process, will you be the only decision maker, or will anyone else be deciding with you? It sounds like, where were you on the night of the 14th, right? Like that's, it's not really great. I need to grab my flashlight and go in a dark room. So versus if I smile, so in your home buying process, will you be the only decision maker, or will anyone else be deciding with you? They can hear that. It's just different. I sound friendly and helpful and customer service oriented, right? The way that we should sound. And I want you to know that the way that you sound matters, because perception is reality. And if they perceive you being a jerk, that becomes your reality. It's not going to go well for you, even if they're real. Next. So we've gotten through LPMA. There's two more, M and A. Next one is mortgage. So will you be using a loan to buy or all cash? Why would we want to know that? Well, because all cash, we can close next week. I've got time this afternoon. Let's go look at a house, right? If they're using a mortgage, takes a little bit longer. I can still go look today. I just means, we won't be closing that deal for 4 to 6 weeks. And that's okay. But we need to understand also many times, if they are going to be using a lender, what have they not done yet? Almost always been pre-approved or pre-qualified, right? They haven't gone through some type of a pre-application process with that lender to be able to run the numbers through at least a provisional underwriting process to understand if this person has true capacity to be able to get a loan, right? Okay, so how would we ask that? So if they say, well, I'm going to use a loan, then we would continue to the second half. Great. And have you been pre-approved with a lender yet? Or would you like some assistance in connecting with one to get pre-approved? Easy. And again, I don't care if you guys want to change the words, make it your own. That's awesome. Make this sound like you. But I would recommend you have all these written out so you can be consistent over time, because your consistency will then tell you something about whether or not the process is working. If every single time you're shooting from the hip and you're trying to paint a different painting every single time, you'll never know if what you're doing works, because what you're doing isn't consistent, right? If I plant 10 different gardens and I have no idea how much I'm watering all of them, I just kind of water them. And then I'm like, well, this one did really well. I wonder why. Yeah, I'll never know because I didn't track it. But if I do the same thing with all of them, then I'll know. Okay. Next, check this out. End agency. Perfect. Now, have you signed a contract with any other real estate agent, or would you like to partner with me as your agent to assist you in your home search? How polite. What a great little piece of verbiage that is. Well, that sounds, Look at what we asked. Have you signed a contract? Not, are you working with? I hear too many people say that. They're trying to be polite. Ask the question you mean. You mean, have you signed a contract? Because if they went and saw a house with Sally down the street or Bill down the street, but they are not under contract with that person, it's the same as taking a listing. If I went and saw a house that I was thinking about listing, and I like that person and they like me, but we haven't signed a listing contract, are they listed? No. Can I talk to that person? Heck yes, I can, and I will. Okay, so I want you to be aware of whether or not these folks are real. Here's another one. Great. Are you familiar with how recent legal updates in real estate now require all agents to document our agency in writing with you for everyone's best interests? Look at that. Give a little clarity around what's happening. Well, no. Oh, perfect. Well, let me show you the form that we use. It's awesome. It's one page, super easy. Couldn't be easier. It takes us a couple minutes. Okay. So why are we showing you all this? Because if you go through this process, and I know this may seem basic, it is not basic, guys. This is the keys to the kingdom right here. This is unbelievable, because if we're taking people who aren't real and we're then sending them through the rest of our funnel, that's like leaving all of the food in a bowl and then just flipping it upside down, throwing it in your dishwasher and hoping for the best, even though you just put 18 pounds of potato salad in the bottom of your dishwasher. It's not going to go well. You clog up the drain. That's what happens in your real estate business if you let everything get through at the front edge. You got to rinse your dishes. That's qualifying. We're rinsing the dish. We don't want all the junk going through. We just want the real stuff going through so we can have real product off the other end. Okay. And so this is cleaning up our supply chain is another way to look at it. But it's really, really a clean process. And do you have to do this every single time? No, this could be leveraged to somebody else. And I think that that's fine. But again, make sure that that person smiles and just asks these questions comfortably, documents their responses, and then moves on. Fantastic. I'll have Joe reach out to you a little bit later if he has any follow-up questions. In the meantime, let's do X, Y, and Z. Easy. Bada bing, bada boom. Okay, so this doesn't need to be complicated. Sometimes we make things complicated thinking that complexity is awesome. Complexity is the enemy of what? Execution. Complexity is the enemy of execution. This process is simple. That's why it's usable. It's memorable. That's why it's functional. Okay, so let's go back. What is a nurture lead? What is a nurture lead? Not bad, but not now. That's what we wrote here on the slide. Not bad, but not now. Has anyone ever run into somebody who's like, yeah, we are actually getting ready to sell our house. You're like, oh, fantastic. And you get that little tingle, right? And they're like, yeah, in May of 2025. And you're like, why are you, what? What? And it's like, well, because Joe's got to, or Bill's got to retire from his job at the mill or the, the firm or whatever. Or she's trying to sell her business. And once we get that M&A deal done, then we're going to have a ton of cash and we can go buy our dream house in Reno or whatever they're going to do. I don't care. Right? But it's always contingent on something happening. Is that person a bad or unqualified lead? No. However, should you be spending a ton of time on that person? Now, also no. Interesting. So they fall into this kind of nebulous, like purgatory, right? Netherworld. We're not really sure what to call them until now, right? If you haven't heard the word nurture before, that's what they are. They're a nurture lead. Why? Because we are going to nurture the relationship with them over time and stay front of mind so that when it's time, they will not have forgotten about us. In fact, the only person that they can remember is you. I want them getting to the end of the next 12 months if they're selling in 2025 and they're like, Tad Vandeman's my dude, or Scott Gephardt's my guy. I know Amanda Ulrich is going to take great care of me, right? And they know that because you kept in touch, not because you gave them your business card and you're like, hey, call me in 15 months. By the way, can anyone remember vividly 15 months ago? Forget about it. Humans are too dumb for it, right? AI can remember that far back, but well, that's a whole nother topic. Anyway, we can't do it. Don't expect your leads to remember stuff. That's like asking them to make sure that you're still in business next year. That's on you, baby. That's not on them. So what do you need? You need their contact information. You need to stay in touch. There are advanced trainings that we've done and can continue to do on working with nurture business, but I'm going to give you some things that are just best practice here. If you have a nurture lead, these are things you should be thinking about. Setting up a calendar reminder at a bare basic, right? If I'm talking to, John Doe over here and says, yes, I'm going to sell my house in 15 months. Fantastic. Here's what I'm going to do, John. I'm going to go ahead and set up some reminders so I can keep in touch with you maybe once a quarter just to make sure nothing's changed and that we're still on track for this plan. And in the meantime, I'm going to X, Y, and Z, and then I do those things right away. Set you up on an MLS trip, set you up on a market update, make sure that you're getting all that information so that you can see what's happening to pricing in the market. We keep our finger on the pulse and we'll be ready when we're ready. But why am I doing that? Because I want to stay in touch. So I will literally set up a quarterly reminder in my calendar to reach out to this person. Secondarily, what am I also going to do? CRM email drip. Some of you know how to build your own email drips. That's awesome. Have a nurture email drip. Goes out maybe every 3 weeks is probably sufficient. You can also put them, if you're in KV Core, I recommend putting them on a market report. Super easy. You can send that one out once a week. Everyone loves those bad boys. It just shows the market's up, the market's down, average price point is this. Let us know if you want an exact CMA. Call every 90 days. What is a reach list? Reach is an app. Pretty cool. Allows you to text people from your cell phone, but it just queues up the next message and plugs in their names. So if you had 100 people in a nurture list, how long would it take for you to send 100 text messages? Not very long using Reach. You could do it using your CRM, but smart numbers sometimes are either frustrating or a source of lost business for agents. So I'm trying to give you an alternative to just doing it that way. You would still need a calendar reminder, however, to remember to send your Reach messages every however long, every 30 days would be what I would do, once a month. And try to avoid the phrase just checking in. By the way, everyone reads through that one. It's too old. Come up with something more novel. What else? Home value updates. Awesome. What else? Newsletters. That could be, hey, just listed, just sold, pending. Could also just be, here's what's going on in the world of real estate. Could be all sorts of things. Credit repair. Some people are nurtures. They're awesome, but they have a legitimate credit repair need. I've worked with clients before who have multi-million-dollar incomes, but they just went through a bankruptcy where they had to restructure some debts because a business deal went sideways. Is that a bad lead? Maybe for the wrong person. For me, that was a terrific lead. I want that lead for sure. They're going to be able to buy great property. And if I'm patient with them and really work with them through this process, I'm going to have an outstanding client on the other side. So I want to work with that person. But now I need to be patient and get them into the right situation to be able to repair their credit and get back up to snuff or something like that. Okay. And then auto SMS drips through your CRM. We talked about that. These are for nurture. So this is best practice. If you don't know what to do, pick some or all of these and just figure out a process. But here's something that I would recommend. Come up with your own SOP. What's an SOP? Anyone from the military?
Standard operating.
Yep, standard operating procedure. Yes, indeed. Right. So you need to have an SOP for nurtures. And I would recommend an SOP just be a checklist. So at the top, it says nurtures. On the list, it says do this, do that, do this, do that, do this, do that, do this, do that. And you just put a check or an X on each box as you go through it. And when that page is done, crinkle it up, throw it away, or recycle, whatever you're going to do. And now that person has been properly tended to. You could also do this digitally. There's digital formats for this if you don't like paper, which save the environment. Thanks, guys. All right. But I want you to understand having an SOP should be a requirement. If you're like, when I get a nurture, I do some stuff and some things, I think. That's not an SOP. That's a disaster. Probably an apocalyptic disaster in your business. Fix that. It's not that hard. I just gave you a bunch of things. Put little check boxes next to them and go. You can be handwritten. It doesn't have to be fancy, guys. Sometimes we think fancy is the answer. Again, complexity is the enemy of execution. Keep it easy. Checklist. Go. Next. Okay. What else? Oh, and I will mention, a lot of times we think, I should spend, I don't want to spend all this time going through this checklist on this nurture. I'll just go to the next person. I'm looking for the good ones today. I promise you, this is not a waste of your time. You need to spend the time to go through this and set up a nurture lead properly. And if it's just you and your business because you don't have admin or assistants, and that's great, by the way, I keep a high profitability business. I'm fine with that. But that means it's on you to do this. And you will not remember at 11 p.m. tonight when you think you will remember. Just do it. Trust me. Take the 2 minutes, go through the checklist, do it. Joe says, does anyone have a good buyer and seller pipeline Excel that I can put on an 8x10? I'm looking to keep better track of my hot leads while at my desk at home. I think we actually do have some stuff, Joe. Text me, 541-531-0975. I'll put it in the chat. And feel free to just give me a holler. I'll send you some stuff. Okay. All right. Awesome. Awesome. Like a possum. Let's go back to it. The seller framework is different than the buyer framework. Why? Well, because it is. Now, remember, 50% of all buyers are sellers and 50% of all sellers are buyers. Order of operations might matter, meaning if they need to sell first, what should we be qualifying first? The sale. But something to remember. This has to do with psychology really quickly. Everyone makes decisions based on their what? Emotions, not logic. We'd love to logic people in, right? It would be great. But if logic was how people made decisions, every for sale by owner would work with an agent because mathematically, we've proven that they will make more money, even after commissions. Has to do with the marketplace effect. So logic doesn't sell people. Emotion sells people. Why am I telling you this? Well, because buyers are almost always excited to go shopping because shopping's fun because we live in a consumerist society, meaning we like to consume. Sellers are very frequently, I shouldn't say always, but frequently, what? Nervous, anxious, guarded, protective, because they feel like they have something and they think it's worth a thing, but they're going to make less. And somehow I'm going to get screwed and this is all going to go badly, right? They just tell themselves that story. So sellers tend to be in a low energy state, I would say, and buyers are in a high energy state. So if you need to motivate a seller, you can use references to their buying activities to get them excited again about whatever's next. Remember that motivation question from early on? To take that back to the sell side to motivate the sales process. I just want you to understand that because that is core to the psychology of what we're doing here. All right, next, the seller framework. SELLER stands for situation, equity, location, level of motivation, or just level, some people say, expertise, and repairs. If you are not qualifying this up front, there's a chance you might not have a seller. Whoops. Let's check it out. And let's see if these are things you're already asking. There's a good chance, by the way, if you're a great agent, you might be like, I'm already asking all this stuff. No doubt. Are you asking it the same way every time? That's really the question. It's not about whether or not you've asked these questions. The question that I have is, have you developed a system or a process that's now duplicatable? If anyone on here is like, I would love to build a team, guess what? You can't build a team. Well, you can without a standard operating procedure. It's really tough. And it's going to go oddly. It's like the old adage what do you call a camel? Or no, hold on. I don't remember. The punchline is a camel is a horse that was put together by a committee. All right. So anytime you're trying to like crowdsource putting something together, it's not going to work very well. Just come up with something and stick with it. And you're like, well, but what if mine sucks? It'll suck a lot less than winging it. I promise that. Just do the same thing every time and then change it as you realize it needs to be changed. But don't change it every time because there's a good chance that last time was perfect. Do that again. Okay. So situation, equity, location, level or level of motivation, expertise, and repairs or updates. What are the questions, Jeff? Well, and by the way, let's get into this really quickly. So again, sellers are a little nervous. What is it that a seller wants? Does anyone know? Just in general, every seller. I shouldn't say a seller because they may want to move to Minneapolis to be near their son and daughter. That's the example I gave earlier. But what is it that they really want when they're selling their house to make sure that this one thing happens? They want to make the most what?
Money.
Heck yeah, money. They want to make the most
more
money.
they spent.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, even better, right? They want to make more than they spent. Thank you, Amanda. They want to make the most money, and I'm going to add the word possible. They want to make the most money possible. I always say the word possible too, because I'll get you the most money for your house. Most is a weird word. The most money possible, I do believe I can pull that off. And what do they want? The least stress. We want to think most and least. They want the most money. They want the least stress. Let's go over to the buy side real quick. Interesting how the buyers want exactly the opposite. They don't want the most stress, but they want the most what? House, or the best house. There's differences there, but they want their perception of the best. For what? The least, same concept, right? Money possible. So sellers want the most money possible. Buyers want the least money possible. This is why we have negotiations in the middle. It's also why agents are so important to this industry. Because we are the intermediaries who help them to navigate this and to negotiate appropriately and effectively. Okay. And there's a lot of negotiation points in this process. But when we understand their core motivators, if you're a buyer and I say to you, now listen, my specialty is helping people to be able to buy a home and get the best home possible for the least money possible. How's that sound to you? What do I know before they even answer? It sounds darn good because that's what every buyer wants, because I'm not a dummy. And if I'm talking to a potential seller and I say, you know, what I specialize in being able to help sellers be able to sell their property for the least time and least stress possible for the most money possible in this market and in any market. And I'm darn good at my job. How's that sound to them before they say anything back? Really good, because that's exactly what they want. I know it. I don't have to ask. So I know what value I can bring. That's core values. It's really low level stuff. We can stack value on top of that. But if all of your value isn't adding to that, trust me, it's not very important to them. But if you say, we take the sexiest pictures you've ever seen, that's great. But if I say, and the reason that matters to you is because we've been able to prove that produces a 1 to 5% uptick in responses, which means you're going to get more offers and better offers, which means you're going to make more money. Now, I've not just told them the element, I've told them why that element matters to them, right? When we say features and benefits, what we mean by benefits is, and why does this matter to that person? The feature is just the thing. Well, you know, some people do staging. I do professional staging. Okay. I do professional staging because it's been proven. I've got a white paper here that shows that it creates an uptick in pricing and you're going to make 1 to 3% more on your house. That pays for me. Heck yeah. High five. And I pay for the staging. How do you like them apples? Or whatever. It could be digital staging. I've never staged a house, but some people do. So if you're going to do those things, present the feature and then the benefit of the feature. I just wanted to mention it in here in case you never thought about it. Benefits is, why does it matter to the client? Not to you. They don't care about you, I promise. And they shouldn't have to care about you. That's silly and entitled. You just work for them, guys. So think about them and what's in their best interests. And if you're trying to sell something, think about why they want it. Why do they want it? Why is it best for them? Why is it going to move them toward their goal? Their goal is to either save money when they're buying or get the most money when they're selling. Okay. Woohoo, we're covering a lot of territory today. I love it. But let's get back in here. So when we start going through the seller framework, situation. So tell me a little bit more about your current situation and what has you what's prompted your decision to sell your property? Why am I calling it property? Lexi talked about this a couple weeks ago. She'll start off with home at the beginning if they're using the word home, and then she'll subtly transition them over time to the word house, and then she'll subtly even transition that to the word property. Why? Because we're trying to detether their emotions from remembering like baby's first steps in this place. You know, my epic, I had my son's 16th birthday party here. We're trying to detether those emotional memories so that they can emotionally allow themselves to move on. I'm just loading it at the front edge of the process. You do what works for you, what you feel most comfortable with. Next. So that's situation. What are we trying to find out? What's their motivation? That's really what we're doing. Sometimes they're like, well, I have to sell because I have some big giant debt that's coming due and I have to pay it off and I have enough equity in my house to be able to cover it. Okay, great. That's a great reason. What do I know though? Sellers who have to sell are more valuable than sellers who kind of want to sell, and are way more valuable than sellers who are like, we're considering it. Does that make sense? It's order of operations, and being able to prioritize is how you make the most money in your business. Because if you don't know what to focus on, you're going to focus on everything. And if you focus on everything, you're focused on nothing. And a lack of focus produces a lack of results. I know that sounds like a lot of bumper stickers in a row, but I just want you guys to know that is all true. So just try and track with me. All right, we're going to keep going. Like Jeff's quippy today. All right, next up, equity. S-E-L-L-E-R. We're on the E, the first E. Equity. Now, do you happen to know approximately how much equity you have in your property? Or do you have a good estimate, right? And they may answer that. Okay, terrific. And just for my records here, are there any other outstanding mortgages, or do you have any other liens that we should be aware of? You could rephrase that however you want. I like the word liens. Some people say loans. Some people say second position, blah, blah, blah. By the way, most borrowers don't know that they have a second position note. So better off to say liens or loans, something like that. You're just trying to find out if there's some like tax lien on their property. You're still going to need to do your own due diligence, guys. This is not a replacement for doing your research, but it does help you, because if they just share it right up front, that helps you quite a bit. Well, I've got $5 in equity and I owe $6 trillion on my mortgage and my house is worth $12. It's like, well, you're in trouble. Right? I'm trying to give you exaggerated numbers so you understand. Next, location. Now, what do you love most about the location of your property? And are there any specific features or amenities nearby that's been particularly appealing to you? Here's what's interesting about this question, and I want to give you a little bit of a preamble. This will be the moment when they tell you everything that they hate about their neighborhood. I'm just promising you that is exactly what will happen on the heels of this question. They will try to answer the question that you answered, but human nature is we've got like twice as many negative words in English as we do positive words. And folks will literally say, well, you know, it's a pretty good neighborhood, but our HOA just jacked up the dues and we've got a thing going on and my neighbor won't fix his fence and the blah, blah. Like, we're just ready to be out of here and we've been looking at this, and that's why that's more appealing. Why? Because it's what they've been thinking about. They're not selling their house because they want to live there forever. They're selling their house because they want to sell their house. Sometimes it's motivated by the neighborhood. And if it is, I want to know. But the best way to ask the question is not, what do you hate about your neighborhood? That's a little weird. What do you love most about your area? It's so much nicer. They'll tell you the rest. I promise. They'll tell you both sides of the coin. Did someone just unmute? Any questions? Awesome like a possum. All right, we're going to keep moving. So we're going to ask that question. Now, by the way, can you dig deeper? Yes. It's a conversation, guys. You are not a robot. It's okay to still continue conversing. But you're going to try to get back on the straight line here to make sure that you're progressing the sale toward an eventuality, which is what? Set an appointment. Because if you're not setting appointments, you're not doing business. So ultimately, we're trying to qualify to understand, is this person serious? Are they real? Before I spend a whole bunch of time, energy, and effort writing 1,000 emails only to find out that's not even the owner of the house. Next, level of motivation. Now, on a scale of 1 to 10, how motivated would you say that you are for us to get your home sold within the next few months? Ooh, us to get your home sold? That's a little assumptive. Yeah, it's all right. Go for it. Just say it with a big smile. Awesome. And they'll be like, well, we've got some stuff to do. We're not in a super big hurry. That's probably the most common response, right? Because they're trying not to give all their cards away. This is all a dance, guys. Just understand the flow of the dance. It's okay, right? They're trying not to give it all up too quickly there. So you can say, okay, and what factors are most influencing your timeline for selling? So if they say, well, we just need to get it done before the end of the year. Okay, great. What's influencing that timeline for selling? They might be like, well, it's tax motivated because I'm an investor or whatever. Okay, terrific. Or I don't know, something else, right? But you want to know and take notes. Please take notes. Do not expect that you will remember this. If you start doing lead generation really well and you have a lot of leads coming through your system and you qualify all of them, will you remember everything that everyone says forever? No, I can't remember what I had for lunch yesterday. Okay, so I promise you, they will not remember. You will not remember, that's for darn sure. Next. Now, have you had any previous experience selling a home? Why? Because I want to know if this is their first barbecue at a rodeo, right? It's not mine, but I need to understand if it's their first time ever selling a home, will that require a different type of seller education process than somebody who's sold 85 houses before? Yes. The 85 houses person might be like, listen, just take it off my hands, get me the most money possible. High five, bada bing, bada boom, I'll sign from my phone, right? The other person might be like a little bit terrified. I have no idea what's going on. What is title and escrow? Help me. Okay, let's walk through that. But that's a different education process and everything in between. So I need to understand that. And then when they answer that question, I could say, great. And what's most important to you about your real estate agent during this process? What I want to know is, what do they say there? By the way, different people will say different things. Some people will say, just great communication. I'd really like to know that my agent's there for me. Or great negotiation. That's another great one. Or I'm really looking for top level marketing. Or I'm selling a luxury property. So honestly, I just need experience. Somebody who's actually done this before, been there, done that, and has sold multi-million-dollar properties. Who knows? Maybe that's you, maybe it's not. It doesn't matter, but you need to know it because it could eliminate this person from your pipeline based on their responses. So you want to understand what's most important. Also, if they say communication and your standard process is that you talk to everybody who lists with you once every 6 months, right before they expire, maybe you want a different process, like, I don't know, every 7 days, something like that. Monday updates. I like that one. All right. It's Monday updates. I used to sing it. All right. And then repairs and updates. Repairs and updates. Now, here's what's interesting. Is a repair an update? No, a repair is a repair. Hole in the roof is different than I put on a whole new roof. Whole new roof, update. Hole in the roof that I fixed, repair. Does that make sense? Different things. Okay, so are there any repairs that you believe are necessary to prepare your property for sale? This is the stuff that we need to get done before it's listed. I might even say that the way I just said it. I would say that we need to get done before we get it listed. We are on the same side of the table because you're already working with me. You just don't know it yet. Okay. And have you made any updates to the property that I should be aware of as well? Or we should be aware of as well as we prepare. Okay. Why are we asking that? Because a lot of times it comes out later when you start discussing pricing. Have we said, what do you think your property's worth? No. Do I care? No. I don't care what they think their property's worth. I care what the market thinks or knows that their property's worth. It's not up to them. If it was up to them, everyone would charge 100 million times what it's worth. What a world that would be. All right. But updates matter. Some people are going to be like, yes, I put in a sub-zero fridge. Awesome. Helpful to know. Also, I painted the walls. Well, what color were they before? Neon pink. That is an update. Does it go to value? Probably not. Also, I added 6,000 square feet of pavers in a beautiful garden, walking garden all throughout my property. Okay, that is a significant update. Also, I added a bedroom that's undocumented. Dang! All right, now we got to do something. All right, so we're looking for that one too. Does that happen? By the way, I've got a lot of people from Oregon on here, land of the undocumented additions to property.
Oh, it happens so much. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, people are like, this says 9 bedroom. I'm like, I'm looking at the tax records. It says 3 bedroom. Oh yeah, well, I added the other ones. Okay, did you talk to the county about? No. Did you talk to the city? No. Did you talk to anyone? No. All right. This is going to be great. All right. So we just need to know that up front. Is it solvable? Of course, everything's solvable, right? Real estate's great. We can always do it. If you're a strong professional, you're going to make money for solving problems. In fact, I was taught early on that you make money in real estate in direct proportion to your ability to solve problems. Hear that. You make money in direct proportion to your ability to solve problems. Buyers might have to pay agents directly. You'll make money in direct proportion to your ability to solve people's problems. Hear me on that. We're going to talk about it next week. Everybody else runs for the hill. I don't know what to do. I'll leave real estate. Okay, leave real estate. Let them go. Some people are saying there'll be half as many agents. By the way, somebody answer this question. Do you believe that next year, as a result of the NAR ruling, that there will be half as many homes that sell?
No.
No. So if there's half as many agents and the same number of homes, what happens to the last men or women standing, or days, or whatever we're doing these days? What happens to the last people standing?
We get the extra business.
Okay, we're going to show you how to make it all work out. But as Winston Churchill said, never, ever, 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 ever give up. That's how you win. Okay? Everyone else starts giving up. You just smile, wish them well. Okay? I promise you, we're going to show you how to get through it. All right. Anyway, my little side note on that. Show up next week. We're going to talk about it a lot. It's going to be awesome. All right. So we got to go back to this. Are there any updates and repairs? We want to know that information. That is the SELLER process. There it is again, seller, situation equity, location, level, expertise, and repairs. And then remember the buyer process, which was LP Mama. These are frameworks, guys, meaning that they help you to do the same thing every time. Could you just print this off and fill it in? Absolutely. So long as you're going to keep that piece of paper, I would recommend this be a digital process inside your CRM so it's documented forever. If you're an advanced CRM user, you can connect it to what's called a deal. Depending on what kind of CRM you're using through KV Core, you can just connect it to a date and timestamp it or tag it with the transaction that they're about to do. That way, if they do 10 transactions with you, it's not hard to detether. Last thing we're going to cover on this process is what's called BAM FAM, which if you've ever been through the high-level Tony Robbins coaching programs, they teach BAM FAM. What is BAM FAM? Does anyone know, by the way? I'm just curious. If anybody knows, blurt it out. It's okay if you don't. This is a really fun one. And it's going to help you in your business to always keep moving. BAM FAM means book a meeting from a meeting. Book a meeting from a meeting. BAMFAM. Book a meeting from a meeting. What does that mean? It means that when you are in a current meeting, whether that's on the phone, on a Zoom call, in person, belly to belly, sitting at a bar, I don't care. Wherever you met this person, you're having this conversation. By the way, if you memorize your process, which I recommend, it should all be memorized. It's a performance. Just do it the same every time. It's okay. That doesn't mean sound scripted. Watch a good movie. Watch a good play. They don't sound scripted. They're scripted. They're saying the same thing every time. It just sounds brilliant and well performed. Why? Because they prepared before they showed up. If you're practicing on your leads, you're doing it all wrong. So practice this stuff in advance. Have these questions and practice saying them. In fact, I would recommend you just record yourself saying them and see how it sounds. And if it sounds like you are reading, then fix that. That is a solvable thing. If you don't know how to read something without sounding like it's reading, here's the answer. Memorize it. Then you won't sound like you're reading because you're not. That's what actors do, professionals do, right? All right, so do the same process every time. But why do we need to BAM FAM? Book a meeting from a meeting? Because if we get to the end of this process, we have a lot of information. We have a pretty good idea about where to head next. Are there a million things that could come up that would head us in different directions? Yes. But are there a fairly healthy handful of things that could just eliminate people right away and we could clean up our pipeline? Yes. And that is what we are trying to do. But the BAM FAM is assuming we want to move forward. Perfect. Here's our script. Perfect. Well, it sounds like all that's next is for us to go ahead and set up a time to get together so we can talk through the next steps to get you to Minneapolis by next Tuesday or whatever it is. I don't care. Okay. What you'll notice there is it says their goal by date or time. It could be a rough date later this year. If they said later this year, pick a non-specific date. That's okay. And then what do we close with? The word okay, or sound good, or fair enough, or work for you, or something. You're looking for agreement. Why? Because from that, you could say, perfect. Let me go ahead and open my calendar. Do you have your calendar handy? And they'll say, yeah. Or if they say, I need to check with my wife. Perfect. Listen, I know how time works for all of us. Why don't we go ahead and reserve a time, check with your wife, make sure that it works. And if we need to reschedule, that's no problem. What am I doing? Booking a meeting from a meeting. I'm not going to let it not happen. Bam, fam. I promise you, if you start doing this, your pipeline will not fall apart anymore. You meet with your client. They say, I need to get credit repair. Awesome. I want to do this. Can we set an appointment for next month just to check in, see how things are going? I'd love to touch base. Awesome. Let's go ahead and get that on the calendar. Live and die to the calendar. Book a meeting from that meeting. Why? Because the next thing that will happen, has anybody ever been ghosted? It used to not happen, by the way. Ghosting is a fairly new thing. Millennials screwed it all up. Just kidding. Kind of though, right? You don't like talking to people, so I understand. But ghosting is rude. But do they do it anyway? Yes. Why? For the same reason we all do. Has anyone ever talked to somebody and then they try to call you for 6 months and you're like, I'm not ready for that yet, but you remember them because you see the phone call come through. What did that person not do with you that you're about to fix? They didn't book a meeting with you. They're just trying to call to just checking in on you, and you know it, and you don't want to take the call yet because you're not ready. But what happens to the motivation of that salesperson as they're just checking in? I thought you wanted to buy a couch. I thought you wanted to buy a couch. I thought you wanted to buy a couch. I'm just checking in. I'm just checking in. I'm just checking. They can't get a hold of you, and eventually what do? They eliminate you. And then 3 weeks after they eliminate you from their CRM, what do? Buy a couch. Guaranteed. Every time. Happens with home buyers, home sellers. So what do you do instead? Book a meeting from a meeting. Do they have to be ready to move? No. That could be your just checking in meeting. It's okay. But book it. And it also, they may still ghost the meeting. I want to give you a little bit of a heads up on this. They may still ghost the meeting, guys. But when you have a meeting booked, now you have something to talk about. Hey, Joanne, sorry we didn't connect today. I know things come up. We had a meeting for today at 12:30. I gave you a call. Sounds like something got in the way. No worries at all. Should we find a time to reschedule? Better. Tomorrow at the same time works for me. How's that work for you? Question mark, send. Text message, by the way, on that one. Scheduling and rescheduling, I always like to do that on text. If you do it on email, you'll hear back from them in 6 months or never. Do it on a text. Okay, why are we doing this? Again, shorten our lead cycle, shorten our frustration cycle, eliminate ghosting, get rid of bad leads. If we can do all the things I just described, we will reduce stress in our business and therefore our closing ratios go way up. What does that mean? It means we could generate more leads, which means we're going to do what Raymond Coburn just put here in the chat, which is make more money. All right. And that's awesome, right? Listen, there's nobody on this call who's like, I'm in real estate, but I sure hope I don't make any money this year. Don't lie to yourself. Yes, you want to help people. Yes, you love your clients. Yes, you love real estate. That's all wonderful. But if we paid you $0, you'd quit tomorrow. Probably today. The reality is we're doing this to make money. So don't be afraid of that. That's just good business. That's okay. You still should provide superior service, value, etc. But it's still in service of earning a living so you can take care of your family, your needs, etc. That's how the economy keeps working and the world spins round and round and round. So again, book a meeting from a meeting. Here it is one more time if you want to take a screenshot of that one. Book a meeting from a meeting is super important. By the way, it doesn't matter what you're doing. Even if you're dealing with a listing, hey, this sounds great. We're going to go ahead and get this price reduction. And why don't we go ahead and plan today's Wednesday? Let's plan a touch base next Wednesday. We'll talk about what's happened over the week and see if what we're doing is working or if we need to make further adjustments. Okay. Okay, that sounds good. Great. Listen, I've got 12:30 or 4:30 available next Wednesday. Which one of those works best for you? Neither? Awesome. What time works for you? Okay, I'll make that work. But I'm booking a meeting. Am I going to end the call going, I don't know, well, we'll talk to each other when we talk to? Nope. Because if you're planned, then you can look at your schedule and you know that not a lot's getting left out. So I want to make sure you understand how important this is. So let's recap. I always love at the very beginning, we cover what we're going to cover, and then we talk about what we did cover. Very first thing, you get permission. Next thing, you identify if they're a buyer seller or a buy sell. Next, after you've sorted, remember sorting hat, Harry Potter, then you drop it either into the seller framework or the LP Mama framework if you're on the buy side. And then after all of that, then we do some bam fam to make sure that we get an appointment set, always for an appointment. And if it's your first appointment, that's incredible. But even at the first appointment, whether it's belly to belly or on the phone or on Zoom, doesn't matter. You're booking the next appointment from there every time, world without end, amen, all the way to the close. I promise. This will save your business so much frustration and hassle. All right. We left 15 minutes at the end for any questions, comments, or notes from top producers. Anybody have anything to add or any questions that you'd like to ask?
I have a comment.
All right. Comment. Let's do it.
A free tip. When you're talking about motivation and trying to find out what their motivation, if I have a seller that says, well, we don't have to sell. I mean, the house is listed. We don't have to sell. And that's what they always come back with. I'll say, well, okay, I will match your motivations. It makes no sense for me to be more motivated than you to sell your house. I do have sellers that do have to sell. So I'm going to be focusing my attention on them and helping them do what they need to do. And as soon as you decide that you really want to sell your house, let me know and we'll get it sold. I'm not going to, just kind of giving them that message that makes zero sense for me to be more motivated than you, because they'll complain about what you're not doing to get their house sold. But then every time you talk to them, they'll say, I don't have to sell. So to kind of make them accountable for their own expectations.
I love that. I think that's super smart. And there's a lot of different ways to handle that. The reality is people are usually trying to accomplish something if they're considering selling, right? So we can also, I've asked many, many times, I'll say, well, I totally understand. And I'm not going to force you to sell. Obviously, it's your house. You do what you want. However, let me ask you, what do you miss out on if you don't sell? Right? What are we asking? We're asking the inverse. And by asking the inverse, a lot of times we'll get new information. What do you miss out on if you don't sell? Well, we're hoping to be able to make a lot of money so that we can this, that, and the other. Awesome. Cool. Well, let's see if we can get you to that end zone. Worst case scenario, we give it the old college try and you say no. No big deal. Best case scenario, you get what you want and you don't have to miss out on being able to do X, Y, and Z, the things that they just said. So I like that question as well. Joanne, I love your approach. And I think, again, having a scripted approach, what you'll notice is Joanne knows exactly what she would say in that scenario. That means she is scripted, right? It doesn't mean that she opened a book of scripts and read something like a robot. That's crazy, guys. That's not what scripted means. Scripted means I know what I'm going to say when you know what you're going to say, right? Which, by the way, the client isn't scripted. So the beauty in being scripted is when I have, let's call them canned responses ready to go inside of me, I can actually be listening at a higher level because I'm not having to try to think through what I'm going to say next, which means I'm listening at about 5%. I'm going to miss so much of what they say. But if I know what my response is when they say, will you lower your commission or, will you work for free or I don't know, whatever they're going to, it doesn't matter. I'd rather list it for $100,000 more and see what happens. I have responses for all of those that I've practiced, that I now know, that accidentally come out perfectly because I've said them so many times. So do all top producers. So if you're newer to the industry and you're like, well, I don't, awesome. How would you do that? Well, when you run into something that you don't know what to say, open your notes app or grab your little notebook and write down the thing that they said where you're like, I didn't know what to say when they said, pick a thing. The objection, and then just write a response that sounds like you, that feels authentic to who you are and who you want to be as an agent. That's great. And then just say the same thing every time instead of winging it for the rest of your career. I promise it's better. Okay. So valuable. Any other, whether it's top producers or anybody else, does anybody currently qualify leads as they come through their business? And does it help you as you go through this process?
Well,
Scott, I see that you're nodding. Yep, go ahead. Amanda.
I was going to say mine's quite the opposite. I guess I'm so new, I forgot and didn't realize how important it is to qualify leads and how quickly you can start chasing your own tail. So this is really, really useful information for me, and it's definitely something I'm going to implement in my day-to-day activities.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I'm so glad to hear it. And for anyone who doesn't know, Amanda Ulrich, awesome agent out in Southern Oregon. So thank you for chiming in. Amanda, I couldn't agree more. And that concept of chasing your own tail, that's where agents say, but I'm working so hard. I'm working so hard. The problem is you're either working smart or you're working hard. Mm-hmm. And so what we're trying to accomplish today is working smart. Really excited about that. Raymond Coburn, what's up, brother? I see your hand up there, my man.
Hey man, thank you. Yeah, so regarding this, qualifying lead or qualifying buyers, I have two commercials and one residential already, but on one of my commercials, a buyer messaged me from um, LoopNet and said that he was interested in offering, like he didn't even try to negotiate. He was just like, I'm going to offer you the whole asking price of 500,000. I'll put down a 50,000 EMD. And I was like, wow, great, cool. Thinking that, that LoopNet actually qualifies a lot of their buyers, and you know. Um, and so I said, okay, well, can you send over your proof of funds? So he sent over his proof of funds, and it came from Canadian Royal Bank of Canada. And I said, okay, a little yellow flag. I thought, okay, let's go ahead and take a look at it. So he sent me the proof of funds. I contacted the bank and I was like, hey, does this person legitimately exist in your bank? I don't need to know how much they have or whatever. Just need to know, I'm doing, a verification research on them. And so they said, yeah, that person doesn't exist. Okay, so they don't have 48 million in their bank account. So then ultimately, the buyer was like, are we going to proceed on this? I'm going to be down there to take a look at it in 2 weeks. I was like, my buyer is considering other offers at this time. So we're gonna take a look into this a little bit further, and then ultimately he just kind of dropped off. He didn't contact me anymore.
That's awesome.
But
ultimately, what a crazy story.
Yeah. Then when I Googled his name that he used, which was a fictitious name on Google, it comes up as a fraudster out in Ghana.
Okay. Well, so again, what we're trying to do, and what I base, by the way, thank you for sharing this, Raymond, because it's really valuable to everybody to hear. This is part of what we're doing, is really trying to eliminate people from, and by the way, we're not going to catch them all. We're not going to catch them all. And some people aren't even fraudsters. Some people are just like, they have the best of intent and they think they can buy a house, and it turns out they really have no capacity or no true motivation. But can we eliminate some people? Absolutely. And what we're trying to do is improve efficiency so that we can make sure that our time is executing at the highest dollar per hour, right? That's really what we're doing. You still work for a living, guys. Don't forget that, right? You still work for a living. You're just either super well paid per hour or you're super hour paid per. Does that make sense? It means you're trading way more of your life for business than you need to. We're trying to eliminate that so you can get more life back, and at the bare minimum, use that to make even more money. So if you can turn up your dollar per hour, and this is a dollar per hour conversion activity, which literally means that if you do this, if you start qualifying your people so you can eliminate at the front end, or at a bare minimum, put them into a nurture cycle, right? So you don't have Raymond's problem where you're like, yeah, no problem. I'd love to meet with you. Listen, let's meet down in front of the police station. I'm meeting with one of my buddies who's a financial crimes investigator. I'd love for you to meet him. So we'll see what happens. I'm sure he'd love to meet you too. Anyway, yeah, that's a bummer. So sorry that happened. Although it makes for a funny story, so that's kind of fun. But yes, this is really, really valuable. Well, listen, we're at the tail end here, guys. And does anyone else have any other questions or any other statements? Any other questions or any other statements? Awesome. I'm going to pause right there, and I'm going to say this before I let you go. Stay with me for a second. In fact, listen to these words. I know there's a lot of weird rhetoric and movement in the real estate industry right now. Here is my actual, this is just straight from my heart. This is not scripted. And so I'm just going to tell you, my true belief is that everything is going to be amazing. That's my true belief. But if you leave, that won't be amazing for you. The very best thing, right? We get into fight or flight. Don't flight, just wait. Sometimes things have a way of working themselves out for the best. And trying to figure out how is it all going to be is not your job. Because even if you figured out how it's all going to be, you're going to be wrong, and it's going to change without you. And if all of us, myself included, weren't in the real estate industry, it would still end up being exactly however it's going to be. But I will tell you this, if you're watching the news, stop that. Just stop it. It's not helping you. I promise. It's just muddying up the waters. And 1 week from today, 9 a.m. Pacific, on this channel, we're doing a mastermind with some of the smartest people that I know, where we're going to talk about exactly this and what's coming and why is EXP the vehicle you want to be in, baby. This is so exciting. We're the largest independent brokerage. We already won the game. I'm going to show you why next week. Okay. It's so thrilling, guys, what's happening right now. And is there going to be opportunity? Yes. There's going to be opportunity that comes out of this. We're also going to show you how to make more money in the industry moving forward, not less. I just don't want you to get worried, right? A lot of times there's fear, uncertainty, and doubt in the industry. Fine, let that exist out there. Keep it outside of our walls, baby. All right, inside here, we're going to show you guys how to make more money, how to have a better life, and how to build wealth for your positive future. That's what we've always been about. It's what we're always going to be about. We're not giving up. In fact, I'm going to double down. So next week, it's going to get really exciting. In the meantime, take a breath, go for a walk, let it go, baby. All right? Fear and uncertainty are not going to move you forward in life or in business. Stop leading with fear and just go out and do the fundamentals of your work. Provide great value for people. This thing will shake out, and it's actually going to be better at the end. It's going to be better at the end. We just can't see it yet, right? And that's so frustrating because what we had worked, right? Okay, well, everyone thought that the sky was falling when TRID and all that stuff happened a number of years ago. Guess what? It turned out just great. In fact, a lot of lenders are making a heck of a lot more than they used to. And that's going to happen for agents. We're going to talk about how and why next week. This channel. All right. Thank you guys for being here. We are the community. We are your growth and training, coaching, everything organization here inside eXp Realty. Thank you to all of our amazing leaders who pour endless amounts of time and energy into leading this organization, helping us to standardize and build. We appreciate you guys. And in the meantime, let me send you out with some cool music. All right, guys. Have a great week.
Thank you.